And what we want to do here is we want to retrieve all the outstanding event data things that we had. We can't pass back anything that's null. I mean, we could pass back an array of events of every event type or something, right? And that we'd have a whole bunch of empty arrays, and it would be pretty wasteful because we're going to have a lot of event types. So I'm trying to think about what we could even do here. Because I had this backwards earlier. We're getting data, we need to like fetch a whole thing from here. So we have our callback. This is how we do our callbacks. But we need the process event. We need to return a bunch of void pointers and a bunch of structs to do this. Well, let's just see if we can find this anywhere in the code base. Something's gotta have execute uObject method as, like, why is this being called? Because as long as we can override that with something. What is this about? This execute method? Unreal CF subprocess remote object execute method. Is actually wrapping this whole thing in an eval anyway? So maybe it just doesn't matter. So maybe I'll need to do it something like retrieve dirty keys, and then that'll trigger a whole bunch of events, and we'll go grab data based on that. So, like get events that have happened, and we'll grab all the events that have happened and rebroadcast them basically after getting the data. So it'll be one frame tick. Get IDs, and then tick data. So we'll have 2 ticks in between when we know we want something and when we actually put it in the UI. Let me think about this. I've got the serializer shit. Like I've got the serialization utils which take a ustruct to JSON or JSON file, so like ustruct to JSON string. So let me just check this out. The FJSON serializer serialize. Because if we're already doing an eval, I might be able to just do a marshal it into JavaScript and eval it and give it, simple JSON for the object and just be done. I mean, it's V8. It should be fast enough. And we're not sending a billion events across the wire, and this would make it so we're not doing a whole bunch of promises. So we have ustruct to JSON object. Let's see what we've got with that. So we might be able to use our serialization utils to just serialize this thing up and send it. And it would work recursively. We just have to support the basic types for creating a JSON string. And we just call eval on it, and just that does what we do. It might work. All right. So what would it look like to do this? It would look like UI events.h. We would have a function that looks exactly like this, like that we have. So we want to actually remove this from blueprint land. And this would be the underscore UI version, and this would be the normal version. And what we do is we'd want to create the JavaScript So the text would start with like events sub event.name, and then basically we would for every variable here if they were an array, we might have some problems because we actually have to construct an array out of it. But if it's just a complex event, like as long as the top level doesn't have any arrays, we're fine. So this is a bit of a problem having like an integer array here. But if it's not an array, like if none of these can be arrays, these all have to be things that are objects, then that's not actually too bad. So if this is complex, if it's an enum, or if it's a normal variable. So if it's a complex type, then we need to create a struct-def input object output string. Yeah, so it'd be like fragment is true. Ustruct to JSON object. Alright, so it's t shared ref f JSON object. So it's u-dashkin serialization utils struct to JSON object. We want the structured definition, so that's going to be I think it's the variable.type static class or something like that. And then we need the input object, so we need the address, variable.name, and then the out object, so just object. For the enum, we just need to get the enum string. So complex will be true, and we want this, where are objects? Objects. So like test complex object. So it looks something like this, and we need to include Dashkin serialization utils.h and a few other things. I think just like that. Let's find out. Alright, it blew up because UI events line 31 event dot, yeah, it needs a capital N for the name. And as long as it's not super insano on performance, like, we should actually be okay with some of this. Yeah, so let's just see if this compiles at all. So we have the example event UI and example event. Example event takes all these things. Let me call execute on it. We probably could do with putting all this inside of a if platform windows, because there's no UI if we're not on Windows. Yeah, there's no UI in that server. Is it T shared ref that's supposed to be? It's probably. Yeah, it's T shared ref. Alright, so var1 didn't work, so what we need is, based on the type of the variable here, we need to figure out, so if the variable is a string, so if variable.type equals string, else if variable.type equals float, else if variable.type equals boolean, else if variable.type is integer, and if it's string, js.append variable.name. Otherwise, if it's a float, let's see, it's fstring sanitize float variable dot name. This will just be if variable dot name js.append true, else js.append false, and this one is just going to be js.append fstring from int variable.name. We'll see if this is all just trash. Line 61 has a problem. Line 61 is wrong. That's also wrong. Is it Dashkin UI HUD.h? Dashkin UI.h? Alright, and the other thing was the JS object? I think we need to include something for that. The JSON object. Alright, so it's an FJSON object, not a JSON object. Alright, so that's generated. Let's take a look at it. Right file? Yeah, that's not looking at the right file. Alright, we'll compile it and see what we've got. Like, we don't need arrays for these events. You can just wrap it in something that's got an array on it, so it's not a problem. We could also make this all one params, which take f structs, which have, you know, all the objects on them, so it's really not an issue. F complex object instruct. Yeah, we don't need this. That doesn't do anything. This has got an F on it. To shared ref. Yeah, so we need to pass in the object there for the writer to do what the writer does. So let's see if this blows up. I'm not sure if this static class is the one that we need. Yeah, it says has no member static class, but IntelliSense can be wrong a lot of the times. Alright, so I need to get the uStruct. So how do we get the uStruct? It's static struct, not static class, is what it's telling me. And this is not object, it's JSON object. The opposite. Alright, so it's gonna fail, but at least we'll see if the static struct exists for this thing. So let's get this compiling. Then we could make the JavaScript side of it at least a stub implementation, which just logs out that it got the event, and I'll be happy with that. I guess isValid doesn't matter here, because that was with a shared pointer, I believe. So I think we can just get rid of that isValid. Yeah, okay. I think that's fine. Never thought I'd use the serialization code that I wrote in like February of last year for communicating with the UI. Alright, so it all compiled, so we want to do the JavaScript stub version of this. So we need to go to our templates, Dashkin game, JS. We want to make a new folder called events. We need to make events.json. And then we want to go to our target and make our events.json as well. Events.json, what the hell? No, it's events.js. Alright, so to do this, we're going to want to go through every event as an event. We're going to want our header and footer stuff going on. So let's get our header and our footer. Okay, for every event in this thing, we're going to make function. Let's see, this is and then we need to go through every variable and just do variable.name. So list event.variables as variable, and then we just do variable.name, and we do sep /sep and /list. Alright, so we got the event.name event. Awesome. So let's generate that. Let's go to our index. Alright, this didn't work. Why not? Events.events is event. What? It's pissed off at line 6. It's saying that events doesn't work. Well, it's event, not events. Right. So we need to go to our UI index. We need to add events.json or JS. And that's good. So what we want to do is we want to call this function from C++ somewhere. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hook up the game utils set example complex event to test this out. So we're gonna do just one, and then we're gonna pass in object to this thing. So let's compile that, and when we click that button, it should call into JavaScript. I mean, it should call into C++, which calls back into JavaScript the next frame, and we should see in the log, got the event, and everything should be marshaled properly. Hello, Fufu Bean. Nice stream I got here? Yeah, it's a nice stream. It's because I'm here. Nah, it's almost over, and I'm pretty tired and brain dead, so it is what it is at the moment. So we'll try to get this rolling. Alright, I compiled, so let's boot it up and click the button. And then maybe I could go get like a haircut today, so I don't look like such a fucking scrub. I mean, I know I live in a basement, but like, I could be a self-respectful basement dweller. Alright, so I should actually run the JavaScript stuff here. Yeah, okay. Chrome isn't complaining, so good chance our code will actually run. Alright, it totally blows the fuck up. Where is it in the call stack? What is this? Ensure retrieving V table pointer during constructor. What? Constructs default shared reference that owns the default object for this type. Used internally only, please do not use. So what exactly is it pissed about? The constructor is for internally, so not for how to reload. Do not use it. Okay. So you don't want me to use... a T shared ref to a JSON object? Alright, so how do we make shared ref? Alright, so it's pissed off about this. So we should be doing something like this, but we really don't need a shared ref because this thing goes out of scope and like, who gives a shit? So is there any reason our ustruct here with our serialization utils actually that needs this sort of shit? Yeah, so like if we got out object here, it's just a bunch of struct checking, isn't it? Like, convert scalar to JSON value. Yeah, so we probably don't need any of that. Like, we could improve the efficiency of our serialization just by getting rid of all that trash, which we probably want to do. I don't have to do it today, though. I can just write it down and do it later. Though it is interesting that a lot of that stuff in the template stuff doesn't explode, even though I am definitely using it. So there's something else going on there. Do you normally talk to yourself, or is it just because you have people watching you? I don't know. Are you a real person? Nah, I think the only time I talk to myself is when I'm like trying to walk through some complex problem or something, and you're just trying to focus your thoughts. But I throw all this stuff up on YouTube too, so I kind of have a stream of consciousness going in case people are watching and wondering what I'm thinking. And I mean, I'm a real arrogant son of a bitch. I like to hear myself talk, so that's just how it goes. Alright. And explosion. Got the example event. Data was true. Got the example event. Yeah, there we go. And that's so. This is another interesting thing there. We evaluated our JavaScript before we actually got the return value from the function which kicked off the eval. So, yeah, that's what we're talking about, where like skipping a frame and having some weird stuff happen is what's going on, and well, we've just bypassed that. Alright, so since we do have it working now, maybe we should go to our serialization utils and take a look at why we've got shared refs for stuff. Because if we go to our UI events here, the FJSON serializer takes a shared ref. I mean, can we just do like FJSON object? I mean, it has to take a pointer, I guess. It's probably not a big performance issue. I'd imagine the compiler nails that one pretty good, since they use shared refs all over the frickin' place in the code base. So I think that's it. I think that's it for today from me. I'm toast, and we're at the point where we've got our event system almost finished. The only thing we have to do is the JavaScript event listener side with registration, deregistration, which really won't be that bad because it's just a global dictionary thing of registering for events. And that should be simple. We've solved all of our large problems and we are left with small ones, which is where we want to be. So let's make sure we're saved up, get our stuff committed to Perforce. and double check that we have all the files. So UI generated enums, generated CF, UI VSDX. Yeah, looks like we're all good to go. And we also made sure to wrap all of our stuff in platform windows for stuff that doesn't exist on our Linux dedicated server builds. So we're done. All right. So let's check that in, kick off the build, and go do other things. All right. So this was JavaScript object, JavaScript object, autogen. Yeah, just UI object, autogen, UI enum, autogen, UI event system, autogen. Excellent. So that is donezo. At least close. So cool. So I'll finish that off tomorrow probably. And then I'll be starting on probably fixing the bugs in the current level blueprint and all that sort of stuff, and kind of starting to use the autogen systems that I wrote today. So let's just make sure to kick off the build, which will validate everything is not complete trash. So thanks for sticking around, and I hope you have a good day and all that. I am going to go eat some food, so goodbye.